Okay, so we're back with part 3 of my Honda Accord Euro Tourer Model N review, I guess. So we're going to look into the front seat now and the front part of the cabin. So yeah, this is where all the, the business end of things is. So if we look sort of straight away here, you've got controls for your electric windows here, door lock, your master lock there for the windows, standard kind of thing there. You've got electric windows. Electric mirrors, which you can adjust here. Now this model doesn't actually have the option to, I was quite surprised, doesn't have the option to fold the mirrors in, which I understand is available on some models, and I kind of thought because this was the top end one that you would have that, but it doesn't seem to. So that is a little bit disappointing. It is one of those things, sometimes you park in car parks and people clip your mirrors, and I like to think that most people are mindful of it, but not everybody is. And again, it is a small kind of issue, and I will move on from it. It's not a deal breaker. Now, interesting here, we've got two memory positions here for the seat, so you can actually program the driver's seat in order to have specific driver positions, because it is an all-electric seat, and it does actually have on the side there a lumbar support. So I was quite fortunate in getting into this vehicle, which I'm about to do, that when I got into it, this was all programmed quite nicely, and for me to get in and sit in here is actually extremely comfortable. And the driving position is actually great, because you sit low enough that you feel kind of comfortable and not too upright, but you can also see out the front and all three sides. And one thing I have noticed is that when I turn my head, there, it is very easy to check your blind spot, and that's something I think a lot of people don't do when they change lanes. So it is having that visibility, and some cars prevent that. Larger SUV types are pretty terrible at doing that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is just put the keys in and give us a look through the functions of the dash here, because there are a lot. So if we plug the vehicle in, everything pops up and it's telling me off here. So we've got a pretty well featured dash here. Again, this is as we're going to the transmission soon, a 5-speed automatic. I'm just going to turn that heater off. So you have these kind of floating dials which are behind glass, and they may not be for everybody, but I quite like them. I think they're great, and there's something buzzy about how the speedo goes up to 260 when, let's face it, realistically we're probably not going to get past about 120. So everything is quite cool here, and you do have this great digital dash here. Now this is one of the key selling points for me, because I love features like this. So if we go back to the start here, so straight away when you get in, it tells you whether the seat belts are on for passengers in the back, and that's kind of a handy feature. But if you're carrying passengers, just if you had kids, you can make sure they're all sort of bolted in. Using the control here, you can kind of alternate between these. Now I'm not going to go into too deep features because it's more in the manual, which is about 300 or 400 pages, but that's something you probably need to read for yourself. So if we just press 1 up here, we go to the next screen, which tells you your average speed. And also on there we've got the amount of kilometres I've done, 57, which is a little higher than I thought, but again still quite low for this age. So average speed of 23 kilometres an hour, and we've got an outside temperature of 13 degrees. If we go here, this next one tells me how long the vehicle has actually been driving for, and because I haven't started up, we're sort of zeroed on the clock there. Next is the total amount of, or approximate amount of kilometres that are likely to be, I guess, received from driving this car on a full tank of petrol. And when I first filled this thing up, it is actually filled up a couple of days ago, it hasn't barely moved off, and I've done a few Ks in it. I've actually probably done, and what we can actually do is look at the amount of Ks. I've done 131 kilometers already in this car, and it still has 644 left. So I had kind of 750, I think, when I started, and it alternates a bit depending on where you drive. But I think that's pretty bloody fantastic for a 2.4 litre 4-cylinder automatic. And the majority of, some of it was out on motorways, but majority of it was just around town. So I consider that, these have got in New Zealand they have a 3.5 out of 6 rating for petrol economy, but I'm actually very surprised by how good it is. So again, it depends on your driving style. I'm a fairly conservative driver. I tend not to thrash cars simply because I don't believe in that, and I'm too old to kind of to go through the whole speeding ticket thing again. You know, my boy racer days of, you know, of Legacies and GTST Skylines are long gone. So if we go to the next screen here, again, this gives you your average, litres of petrol per 100 kilometres. I'm aiming to, you know, they say that best is probably like 9.2 or something, or 9.4 around town. I'm sort of aiming around 10, try and keep it at that, keep that fuel economy up. Next here you have amount of, you know, a litrage per 100 kilometres in real time. I try and keep it around between 5 and 10. On the motorway you can kind of get it down to about 4 or 5, so it's pretty good. And then kind of it goes back to the start there. So I tend to just leave it on this one here, just so I know how I'm sort of going with things. So this is all backlit, and it does light up very nicely during the day. Again, it kind of has that race feel to it, which is great. It's a very well featured dash, and yeah. So if we go along down here, we have a few other features here. So we've got parking sensors, which can be tuned on or off, which is great. They were on the external vehicle there, and they'll actually beep if we come too close to something, so that's pretty good there. This particular model that I have actually was retrofitted with a Bluetooth car kit, which I have set up. So you have the speaker up there, and it does come through the speakers up the top there. And I've actually found this to be of fairly decent quality. I wouldn't say it's the top end experience, but it is quite sufficient for what I need it to be able to do. Yeah, so I'm quite pleased with that there. That is one thing to go from there. Now I'd like to point out that the Bluetooth so far thus extends only to my phone for phone calls. I have not actually figured out to see if there's any way to sort of work that with the stereo. I don't think so. So I've actually employed an external Bluetooth unit, but yeah, we won't worry about that. I'm just going to sign this video off here so it's not too long, and I'm going to move on to the other part of the interior and so forth. So yeah, hopefully you'll follow through on that.